Welcome to the Dating After Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Shade Curry, and I believe every divorced woman deserves a romantic relationship where she feels safe, loved, and cherished. You can create the most amazing life after divorce, and I will teach you how. Hello, ladies. Welcome to episode 16. And this is the second in a series of 3 podcast episodes where we're going to talk about your thoughts. So last week we talked about your thoughts about dating and how you think about the whole experience and the whole process, being on apps, finding people in real life, and really how your brain has a tendency to lean on only the things that are negative in that space. And how, if you're not aware that your brain has a negativity bias and will really only serve up to you all of the negative evidence, if you're not aware of that, then you might fall into the trap of thinking that everything's gone wrong, everything's terrible, and that the dating process is not working for you. This week, we're going to talk about your thoughts about men because these thoughts affect you as well. They affect the way you show up, they affect the way you interact, they affect your ability to stay in relationship with the person that you want, or even to notice the person that you want when they come into your orbit. First of all, how aware are you of these thoughts? I want you to pause this podcast and take 2 minutes, grab a piece of paper and a pen, and at the top of the piece of paper, write my thoughts about men. And for 2 minutes, just write everything you think when you think of the word men, right? What are the things that come to your mind when you think about men? So take a minute, write it all down, and then come back. All right. So I hope you paused the podcast, unless you were driving, in which case, hopefully, you didn't do that. I hope you took a minute to write down all of your thoughts about men. This is the first step in changing how we show up in the world and how we take control of our thoughts and our emotional state and our mood and our attitude and our general approach to this process. So, what were your thoughts about men? Did you think, oh, they're all jerks? They're all liars? Did you think there are no good ones out there? I talked to a woman once when we connected on a phone call to talk about coaching with me about her thoughts about men. And what she didn't realize before the call was that she felt that men were good, but they were only safe for her if they were far away. And so she got into this cycle of having relationships where she would never commit to the person. She always wanted the man to live a little further away. She always wanted him to have his own place and for her to be away because she didn't feel safe bringing a man into her space. She felt like it was nice to have someone to go on a trip with or to date every once in a while, but to really have that intimate connected relationship with a person where you're vulnerable and you're open. And they're the same. She felt like that relationship was unsafe. And we uncovered this because, we went through kind of what's been going on in her life and her patterns of relationships. And her thought were, men are great, but they're not safe to bring into my space. So what are your thoughts about men? Do you feel like all the good ones are taken? Or are you a little more aware of what's true versus what story your brain is telling you? So in the case of the conversation that I was having, her story was that it wasn't safe to bring men into her space. However, that was just a story that her brain was telling her. It is safe to bring some men into your space. Of course, not every single person out there is safe, but her brain didn't pay any attention to the fact that some men are safe to bring into your space. And her brain spent no time at all thinking about what those men might be like, the safe ones, and what she might want, and where to find that person, and how to go on a journey to find that person. Her brain simply presented her with a story that all men are not safe to have into your space, and that story was kind of the engine that was running her dating experience and keeping her single. In truth, like I said, some men were safe. And so, because she hadn't separated the story her brain was telling her from the truth of what actually happens in the world, her dating process was stalled. She wasn't finding the person that she wanted. She would date people for a long time who were somewhat unsuitable for her, and she would kind of stay stuck in those relationships for a long time. When you're not in the truth of what's real in the world and you're in a story that your brain is telling you, giving you thoughts about men that are not effective, what happens is you might end up settling because you think, well, there are no good men out there. I basically have to take what I get. Right. And so you settle for less than what you want or less than what is healthy in a relationship. And that leads to these toxic cycles of getting into a relationship, finding out that it's not healthy, trying to tolerate it, finding out you can't tolerate it, getting out of the relationship. If you think that there are no more good men, all the good men got married, they're taken, and all that's left are the ones you don't want, then you're recycling discouragement and despair. So you might be out there sort of dating, kind of dating, putting yourself out there, but your brain isn't really looking for that guy that's in the world that would be perfect for you. And the reason all of your faculties and all of your senses and all of your resources are not working for you is because subconsciously you don't believe that that person exists. When you don't believe that person exists, you're not going to put any energy into truly finding him. You're not going to take any risks. You're not going to do anything outside of your comfort zone. You're not going to put a lot of energy into it because subconsciously you know, well, he doesn't exist. So maybe I'll just go through the motions and be on the apps and maybe do little networking here and there. But I know he's not there. So why really invest into this process? Why commit to this process? So you can start to see how these subconscious thoughts can really have an impact on how you date. If you are for sure that all men out there are toxic, and we all know that toxic people are not really what we want in our lives, you actually train your brain to keep finding toxic people because your brain wants to keep you safe. So it's sort of like you're in the jungle, right? And then there are all these predators. Your brain is going to continue to look for the predators because the only way it can keep you safe from the predator is to make sure there's none in the area. And guess how you do that? By finding those people. So if your brain is thinking that, well, you are at a disadvantage and you're going to get taken advantage of, and there's all these narcissists on the apps and there's all these narcissists in the world, and there are no good people, it's just going to keep looking for those kinds of people. So, what are your thoughts about men, and how do you think those thoughts are impacting your dating process right now, today? How do you think those thoughts are affecting what you've how do you think those thoughts have affected your results so far? One of the things that I committed to thinking when I was single and I was dating was that if there was only 10 men on the planet who were healthy and loving and reliable and compatible with me, I just told myself that I was committed to finding one of those 10 men, and I was going to be one of the 10 women on the planet who found those men. So even though I was aware that there were people out there in the world that were not suitable for me, I didn't let my brain take me down the path of, oh my gosh, all the men are taken, all the good men are taken, because there's no way that can be 100% true. So I allowed my brain to kind of say, okay, well, maybe there's not a lot of them. Maybe there's only 10. But then I also committed and took control of that process and was very intentional in also saying that if there were only 10 men in my orbit who were healthy, then I was determined to find one of those men and make them my partner. So you can see that just because something is true in one way does not mean that it's a universal truth, and it doesn't have to be the personal truth for you. The challenge you're going to face is that your brain is pre-programmed to really settle into the drama. Your brain is pre-programmed to settle into the negativity. Your brain is pre-programmed to look for everything that could go wrong, everything that might go wrong, how it's going to go wrong and really build that picture up. Your brain is developed to like really make that negative picture grow bigger and bigger and make it more vivid so that it keeps you safe. What you want to do as a higher being is to take control of that picture in your mind by changing your thoughts, by choosing thoughts that are true and that fuel the goal that you have, by committing to the goal that you have and redirecting your brain to really settle into the positive picture and building that picture up clearer and clearer and bigger so that you can get what you want. So, here are some thoughts that might help you in redirecting your brain into thinking about men in a more positive way. These are just some thoughts. They might work for you, they might not work for you. Think about how you want to think about men. What's true for you, right? So, a thought could be, I know some good men. Is that true for you? Do you know some good men? Instead of being in a group of people sitting around talking about how there are no good men, right? Ask yourself, do I know some good men? Is my dad or my brother or my uncle or a coworker a good man? Also, here's another thought. Statistically, there's a lot of good men. So if you actually look at the statistics of disordered people or people who are criminally minded or narcissistic, they are actually a very small portion of the population. But if you've experienced one of these kinds of people before, your brain tends to make them larger than life. Your brain tends to look for them everywhere. So you think every guy out there is a narcissist. But statistically, they're like less than 10 to 20% of the male population. I did an activity with a client recently where she felt like she had dated all the good men in her city. And to be fair, she's a very high achieving woman. She went into the dating process taking a lot of massive action. Like she's never had a problem of like, I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that. Like she is one of my favorite clients because she's spot on. She takes action. She does all the things. And after a few months, she felt like, okay, I've met all the guys. And so, in the true spirit of being a coach and doing the story versus fact approach, I said, okay, let's look at how many single men are in your city. So we went on Google together and pulled up the statistics of the single men in her city. Interestingly, her city is one of the top 30 cities for single people. Like there's a ton of single people in her city. And as we started walking through the facts of her situation, she was like, oh, wait a second, there's no way, there's no way that I've met all the men in my city because here's the number of guys I've actually met, and here's the number that's actually available. So your brain will always have that story that's keeping you out of the game. And your job is to keep your brain thinking the thoughts that keep you in the game. So looking at statistics can be an amazing way of redirecting your brain into thoughts that are good for your dating process. Another thought is men are fun. Is that true for you? Have you experienced men as fun? If you haven't experienced them as fun, that doesn't mean that they aren't fun, right? So looking at your experience or the evidence that your brain gives you can be very different from what's true in the world or what can be true for you in your future. Another thought is some men are kind and loving. That's true. Another thought that I like is I love having men around me because I think that men are fun. So um, I'm able to kind of take that thought, men are fun, and I love having them around me, and use that to fuel the kind of community and network and partnership that I want. Also, how about this thought? It would be fun to have a good man in my space. Does that feel true for you? Or are you out there dating while also believing that you really don't want a man in your space? So, taking a look at your unconscious thoughts, taking a look at what's really going on the inside of you can help you understand what's holding you back in your dating process. Going through your thoughts, writing them down, examining them getting to a place of self-awareness, redirecting them, changing them actually transforms you. It causes you to show up in the dating world as a whole new person who's more capable, who is more attractive, who attracts the kind of people that she wants, who is more resourceful and able to like take that beeline to finding her partner. So, I want to encourage you to take a look at your thoughts today. And if you would like my help in thinking about what's going on under the hood of your dating process, feel free to book a call with me. I give out an hour free consultation, and you can do this at shadecurry.com/schedule appointment. You can also find the link in the show notes. I'm more than happy to take a look at your unconscious thoughts and how they are impacting your dating process and your dating results. And thank you for listening today. I appreciate your time and attention, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening today. If you are ready to get married after divorce, I want to invite you to download my free 8-video training specifically designed to help divorced women date with ease and get married again. Head over to shadecurry.com to get started. That's SADECURRY.com. I'll see you inside.